Ever wondered why some old houses have tiny doors, random windows, or hidden shelves in the walls? These 25 mysterious home features tell the story of how families lived decades ago. Remember when getting milk meant waiting for a cheerful whistle at dawn? Every suburban home had this tiny architectural feature that seems bizarre today: the milk delivery door. This wasn't just any door. It was a small cabinet built right into your exterior wall, usually near the kitchen. The milkman would arrive before sunrise, quietly sliding fresh glass bottles into your personal milk vault from the outside. No doorbell, no awkward morning conversations in your pajamas, just fresh dairy waiting when you stumbled to the kitchen for coffee. Genius, right? These little doors saved everyone time and kept the milk cool until families woke up. Picture entire neighborhoods designed around this daily ritual. Rows of identical ranch houses, each with their own milk portal. The system worked flawlessly through the 1960s. But then everything changed. Refrigeration got cheaper, and supermarkets started staying open longer. Why wait for delivery when you could grab a gallon during your weekly grocery run? By the 1980s, those cheerful milkmen had nearly vanished from American suburbs. Today, you'll spot these forgotten doors on older homes, usually painted over or converted into decorative niches. Speaking of forgotten features that once connected rooms in ways we can barely remember. After your milkman finished his rounds, families needed another way to communicate without all the shouting. Enter the home intercom system, those boxy wall units that turned your house into mission control. These weren't just fancy gadgets for rich folks. By the 1970s, Radio Shack and other brands made intercoms affordable enough for split-level homes and sprawling ranch houses. Mom could buzz the basement to call kids for dinner. Dad could check if anyone was awake before starting his Saturday morning lawnmower symphony. The master bedroom became command central, with buttons connecting to every room. But here's the weird part. Families actually used these things religiously. No more bellowing up the stairs or wandering the house hunting for someone. You just pressed a button and talked to the wall like some kind of domestic astronaut. The systems came with their own etiquette too. Kids learned quickly that Roger Mom got better results than ignoring the static-filled summons entirely. Then cell phones showed up and made the whole setup look ridiculous. Why wire your walls when everyone carries their own communication device? Open floor plans didn't help either. Suddenly, you could just look across the room instead of buzzing the kitchen. Speaking of things that saved steps around the house, nothing beat the satisfying thud of dirty clothes tumbling down a laundry chute straight into the basement. These clever vertical tunnels saved countless trips up and down stairs, turning laundry day into something almost fun? Well, maybe that's pushing it. Most two-story homes in the 1960s featured these built-in shortcuts. You'd find them tucked into hallway walls or bathroom corners, usually with a small hinged door that opened to reveal a dark shaft leading to the utility room below. Kids loved them too much, parents discovered. Toys, pets, and occasionally younger siblings took unexpected rides down the chute. The convenience factor was undeniable, though. Armloads of towels and sheets could vanish in seconds instead of requiring multiple trips down narrow staircases. But here's the weird part. Just as these chutes reached peak popularity, everything changed. By the 1980s, smart builders started moving laundry rooms upstairs, closer to bedrooms where most dirty clothes originated. Makes sense, right? Why send clothes down just to carry clean ones back up? Safety concerns grew too, with building codes getting stricter about potential fire hazards. Then there's another home feature that dominated family communication before cell phones took over. Nothing screamed modern living quite like walking down 3 steps into your family's conversation pit. These sunken living rooms carved out a cozy lower level right in the middle of your home, creating an intimate space that felt both sophisticated and groovy. Architects in the 1970s and early 80s loved this trick because it made rooms appear larger while defining separate areas without walls. The sunken section became the natural gathering spot, perfect for hosting dinner parties or family game nights. You'd arrange your sectional sofa around the perimeter, maybe add a coffee table in the center, and suddenly your living room felt like something straight out of a design magazine. But here's where things got interesting. These trendy floor drops turned into liability nightmares faster than you could say lawsuit. Guests constantly stumbled down those steps, especially in dim lighting. Kids running through the house? Forget about it. Then there's the cleaning challenge. Vacuum cleaners don't exactly love navigating elevation changes. By the late 1980s, Families wanted safer, more practical spaces. Open floor plans took over, and contractors started filling in those sunken areas during renovations. Speaking of flooring challenges that fell out of favor, wait until you hear about another 70s favorite that required serious elbow grease to maintain. Walk into any Florida home built in the 1960s, and you'd probably find yourself standing on terrazzo floors. These weren't your average floors, they were made of marble chips mixed with cement, then polished to a glossy shine that could blind you on a sunny day. The result? Floors that looked like expensive confetti frozen in time. Homeowners loved terrazzo because it could handle anything. Spill your coffee? No problem. Kids tracking in mud? Easy cleanup. The stuff was practically indestructible, which made it perfect for warm climates where people walked around barefoot or in sandals. Plus, it stayed cool even when the Florida sun was trying to melt everything else. But here's the catch. Installing terrazzo was like performing surgery on your house. It required skilled craftsmen who knew exactly how to mix, pour, and polish the materials. One wrong move, and you'd end up with an expensive disaster. The labor costs were brutal, and the process took forever. Then came the carpet craze of the late 70s. Suddenly, everyone wanted wall-to-wall carpeting, and terrazzo felt cold and outdated. These days, you'll barely find terrazzo in new homes. But speaking of things that made homes feel dated, dark wood panels lined practically every den, basement, and family room across America during the 1960s and 70s. Homeowners couldn't get enough of that cozy, cabin-like atmosphere these walls created. The appeal was simple. Wood paneling was cheap, easy to install, and brilliantly disguised any wall imperfections lurking beneath. Installation took just a weekend. Dad could slap up those 4x8-foot sheets faster than you could say Harvest Gold appliances. No messy drywall compound or painting required. The panels came pre-finished, which meant instant gratification for families eager to modernize their spaces. But here's the weird part. What felt modern then started looking dated surprisingly fast. By the early 1980s, wood paneling had become the enemy of interior design. Real estate agents would practically beg sellers to rip it down before showing homes. It makes everything look dark and cramped, they'd warn. The shift toward painted drywall happened almost overnight. Suddenly, everyone wanted bright, open spaces instead of those cave-like dens. Renovation shows made wood paneling the villain, and homeowners responded by tearing it out in droves. Yet some design trends from this era managed to survive much longer than paneling, especially in the kitchen department. Remember those wood-paneled walls that made every den look like a cabin? Well, the kitchen had its own bold statement piece. Avocado green appliances dominated 1970s homes like nothing else. We're talking refrigerators, ovens, dishwashers, and even sinks in that unmistakable olive green shade. Harvest Gold was the other champion color, turning kitchens into earthy showcases. These weren't subtle accent pieces either. Your entire kitchen screamed 1970 from every corner. The refrigerator alone could cost over $800 in 1975 money. That's nearly $4,000 today. But here's what's fascinating. Families actually planned their entire kitchen design around these colorful giants. Countertops, wallpaper, even dish towels had to match that avocado theme. It wasn't just about function anymore. Your appliances became the room's personality. The trend reflected America's obsession with natural, earthy vibes during the decade. Avocado green felt organic and fresh compared to the stark white appliances of the 1950s and 60s. Makes sense, right? By the early 1980s, though, neutral tones crept back in. White and almond became the safe choices. Today's stainless steel would have looked alien back then. Speaking of things that covered every surface in the home, there's another 1970s obsession that literally cushioned your every step. Nothing screamed 1970s living quite like sinking your toes into 3 inches of glorious shag carpeting. This wasn't your grandmother's thin rug. Shag was thick, wild, and completely over the top. Bedrooms and family rooms transformed into fluffy wonderlands with carpet so deep you could literally lose small objects in it. The colors were absolutely bonkers. Burnt orange shag dominated living rooms, while electric blue covered teenage bedrooms. Some brave souls went full psychedelic with rainbow patterns that looked like someone spilled a paint store. Walking barefoot on shag felt incredible, like stepping on a cloud made of yarn. But here's where things got messy, literally. Spill anything on shag carpet and you were in for a nightmare. Those long fibers grabbed onto dirt, pet hair, and mystery crumbs like they were collecting trophies. Vacuuming became an Olympic sport. The vacuum would get stuck, carpet fibers would wrap around the roller, and you'd spend more time untangling than cleaning. Then allergies became a bigger concern in the 1980s. All that thick carpeting trapped dust, pollen, and whatever else floated through the house. Health-conscious families started ripping out their beloved shag faster than you could say, carpet burn. Speaking of things that collected dust, let's talk about another crafty trend that dominated walls everywhere. Want to know what made 1970s living rooms look instantly groovy? Macrame everything. Those knotted cord plant hangers dangling from every ceiling hook weren't just decoration, they were a lifestyle statement. The art of tying elaborate knots into rope became America's favorite DIY obsession. Housewives spent weekends crafting wall hangings that looked like geometric spiderwebs. Plant hangers sprouted in corners like botanical chandeliers. Some people went completely overboard, creating macrame room dividers and even chair covers. Craft fairs couldn't keep up with demand. The weird part is, most people had no idea they were practicing an ancient sailor's art. They just knew those chunky, textured pieces added instant boho flair to their split-level ranch homes. But here's what killed the trend. Dust. Those intricate knots trapped everything. Cigarette smoke, cooking grease, pet hair. Cleaning them required patience nobody had. By the mid-1980s, sleek minimalism was taking over. Out went the rope art, in came smooth surfaces. Macrame made a brief comeback recently with younger generations, but it never reached that 1970s fever pitch. Speaking of things that defined home communication back then, every house had something built right into the wall that connected every room. Remember when every house had that special spot on the wall, not for art or decoration, but for the family phone? These built-in phone niches were everywhere in the 60s and 70s, complete with their own little shelf for the phone book and maybe a notepad. Most came with a tiny seat or stool. Makes sense when you think about it. Phone calls weren't quick texts back then. You'd settle in for a proper conversation, pen in hand, ready to scribble down important information. The kitchen wall was prime real estate for these setups, right where mom could keep an eye on dinner while chatting with neighbors. Then there's the cord factor. Those curly phone cords stretched across entire rooms as people wandered while talking. The wall niche kept everything organized and gave the cord a home base. Plus, everyone knew exactly where to find the phone when it rang. No hunting around the house. Well, cell phones changed everything practically overnight. Why would builders install dedicated phone spots when everyone carries their own personal communication device? By the 1990s, these built-in niches started disappearing from new construction plans. But speaking of things that disappeared from backyards, let's talk about those wonderfully weird pool shapes that once ruled suburban summers. Jelly bean-shaped pools ruled suburban dreams from the 1950s through the early 1970s. These weren't your basic rectangles. They wiggled and curved like giant kidney beans dropped into perfectly manicured lawns. Homeowners loved showing off these organic shapes at weekend barbecues. The curvy design felt modern and fun, a stark contrast to the rigid geometry dominating most home features. But here's the weird part. Those beautiful curves became their downfall. Pool covers? Nearly impossible to find ones that fit properly. Cleaning became a nightmare with all those odd angles collecting debris. And don't even think about installing an automatic pool cleaner. Those things work best in straight lines. Then prefab rectangular pools hit the market hard in the late 1970s. Cheaper, easier to maintain, and you could actually buy accessories that fit. The Jelly Beans days were numbered, maintenance costs stayed sky high while rectangular alternatives got more affordable every year. Walk through older neighborhoods today, and you'll still spot a few of these curvy relics, though many have been filled in or renovated into boring rectangles. Speaking of things that swung out of style, remember those phone niches we just talked about? Well, kitchens had their own clever barrier system that's equally extinct today. Swinging kitchen doors were everywhere in mid-century homes, creating a theatrical entrance between cooking and dining spaces. These weren't your regular hinges. They swung both ways, letting busy hosts glide through with platters of food while keeping kitchen chaos hidden from dinner guests. One push with your hip and you're through. Hands full of casserole dishes and nobody sees the messy prep area behind you. But here's the weird part. These doors actually made sense before the 1980s revolution changed everything. Kitchens were work zones, not social hubs. You cooked alone, then presented the finished meal. The swinging door was like a stage curtain between backstage cooking drama and the main dining performance. Then, open concept layouts arrived and basically murdered the swinging door overnight. Why hide the kitchen when you could show it off? Families wanted to chat while chopping vegetables, not disappear behind barriers. The installation costs didn't help either. Those special hinges and precise measurements made them pricier than regular doors. Today, you'll only spot them in retro remodels or vintage homes that never got the open concept makeover. Speaking of things that filtered and softened experiences, remember those swinging kitchen doors that practically announced dinner was ready? Well, if you ventured into the dining room afterward, you'd probably spot another hallmark of 1970s home decor hanging overhead. Decorative fringe lampshades were everywhere back then, draping down like little curtains of fabric strips or delicate beads. These weren't just functional light fixtures, they were conversation pieces that added serious personality to any room. The fringe created this soft, diffused glow that made everything feel warmer and more intimate. Plus, they came in wild colors that matched perfectly with the velvet furniture and bold wallpaper patterns everyone was obsessed with. But here's the thing about fringe. It's a dust magnet. Those delicate strands collected everything floating around the house, and cleaning them was basically impossible without damaging the material. Try vacuuming beaded fringe without breaking half the strands. Good luck with that project. Then there's the weird part about how they went out of style almost overnight. By the early 1980s, people wanted cleaner lines and simpler designs. The fringe suddenly looked dated and fussy. Modern lighting moved towards sleek, minimalist styles that didn't require constant maintenance or dusting rituals. Speaking of things that required way too much upkeep, let's talk about those massive mirrored closet doors that seemed to multiply throughout every bedroom. Every bedroom in the 80s had them. Those sliding closet doors covered in mirrors made your room look twice as big instantly. Builders loved installing these things because they solved two problems at once: storage and that cramped bedroom feeling most homes suffered from. The psychology was brilliant, actually. Walk into any master bedroom and boom, the space felt massive. Your tiny 10x12 room suddenly appeared spacious enough for a king-size bed and matching furniture set. Real estate agents practically drooled over this feature during home tours. But here's where things got messy. Literally. Those mirrors showed everything. Every unmade bed, every pile of dirty laundry, every bit of bedroom chaos got doubled in the reflection. Kids would accidentally slam doors and create spiderweb cracks across the surface. Trying to clean fingerprints off 6-foot-tall mirrors became a weekly nightmare. Then there's the weird part. They made getting dressed awkward. Nothing like catching your reflection from 3 different angles while trying to find matching socks at 6 a.m. Safety concerns started piling up too. Large glass panels near beds and children didn't mix well. By the 90s, builders switched to safer wood-paneled doors that couldn't shatter. Speaking of things that dominated entire rooms back then, wait until you hear about those dramatic cathedral ceilings that made heating bills skyrocket. Remember those mirrored closet doors that made every bedroom look like a disco? Well, cathedral ceilings took that bigger is better philosophy and pointed it straight up. These dramatic pitch ceilings, often crowned with exposed wooden beams, became the crown jewel of 1980s home design. Walk into any middle-class living room back then, and your eyes would immediately shoot upward. The soaring space made even modest homes feel like grand lodges. Real estate agents loved them. Nothing sold a house faster than that cathedral ceiling wow factor. Builders caught on quick, installing them in split levels and ranch homes across suburbia. But here's the thing about reaching for the sky. It gets expensive fast. Those beautiful beams collected dust like nobody's business. Ever tried cleaning a ceiling that's 20 feet high? You need scaffolding just to change a light bulb. And the heating bills? Brutal. All that gorgeous space meant your furnace worked overtime heating air that never made it down to where people actually lived. The energy crisis of the late 80s dealt cathedral ceilings their death blow. Suddenly, cozy and efficient trumped grand and wasteful. Modern homes returned to sensible 8-foot ceilings, saving both money and sanity. Speaking of 80s excess, some homeowners took their entertaining spaces to even more dramatic extremes. Cathedral ceilings made rooms feel grand. but some homeowners wanted their basement to feel like a completely different world. Enter the tiki bar, because nothing said sophisticated entertaining quite like turning your rec room into a Polynesian paradise. These tropical-themed basement bars exploded in popularity during the 1960s and 70s. Bamboo everything, grass skirt trim around the bar counter, tiki masks glaring down at guests while they sipped Mai Tais from plastic coconut cups. The whole setup screamed, "I'm worldly and fun at parties." Installing a tiki bar became the ultimate suburban status symbol. Husbands spent weekends crafting bamboo facades and hanging fishing nets on wood-paneled walls. Wives shopped for ceramic pineapples and seashell ashtrays. The basement transformed into an escape from everyday life, even if that escape looked suspiciously like a theme restaurant. But here's the weird part. Most people had never actually been to a real tiki bar. They were copying copies of copies, creating their own version of exotic. By the mid-'80s, tastes shifted towards sleeker, more minimalist, entertaining spaces. Those elaborate bamboo setups started looking dated and tacky. Speaking of rooms that fell out of fashion, there's another space that became surprisingly controversial in American homes. Back when tiki bars ruled basement entertainment, families were also obsessing over another status symbol upstairs, the formal living room. You know, that pristine space at the front of the house that nobody actually lived in. These rooms were like museums in your own home. Perfect couches that screamed, "Don't sit on me," coffee table books arranged just so, maybe some fancy china displayed in a cabinet. Everything coordinated and dust-free because, well, dust requires actual use. The logic seems solid enough. Company comes over, you usher them into the good room to show you've got class. Meanwhile, the family piled into the den with the beat-up recliners and that wood paneling we talked about earlier. Makes sense, right? But here's the weird part. Most of these formal rooms sat empty 360 days a year. Expensive square footage serving as an elaborate shrine to theoretical entertaining. By the 1980s, families started asking why they were paying mortgage money for a space they couldn't touch. The great room concept bulldozed right through this pretense. Open floor plans meant one big space where everyone actually gathered. No more room segregation based on social hierarchy. Speaking of spaces that divided families into different areas, let's talk about those clever bathroom layouts that tried solving the morning rush. Back when formal living rooms ruled the house, bathrooms had their own version of fancy compartmentalization. These weren't your typical cramped spaces. Instead, one bathroom got divided into separate sections. Toilet in one area, sink in another, maybe the tub behind its own partition. The concept made perfect sense for busy families. Dad could shave while mom soaked in the tub and the kids brushed their teeth. No more morning traffic jams or awkward waiting outside the door. Each zone had its own purpose, and everyone could get ready simultaneously. Builders loved this setup during the 1960s housing boom. It felt luxurious and modern, like having multiple bathrooms without the massive construction costs. Well, that's what they thought anyway. But here's the weird part. These compartments required extra plumbing, more walls, and specialized ventilation for each section. The cost-saving design actually drove up expenses. Contractors started scratching their heads when they realized a simple single-room bathroom was cheaper and easier to build. By the 1980s, most new homes returned to straightforward bathroom layouts. Families discovered they preferred open, spacious bathrooms over cramped compartments. Speaking of things that seemed revolutionary but didn't last long, remember when dialing got a major upgrade? Before smartphones took over our pockets, there was a brief golden era when push-button phones ruled American homes. These sleek devices launched in the early 1970s, promising lightning-fast dialing compared to those sluggish rotary phones that took forever to spin back after each digit. The appeal was instant. Why wait for that rotary wheel to crawl back when you could just tap, tap, tap your way through a phone number? Push-button phones came in every color imaginable. Harvest gold, avocado green, bright orange, even hot pink. Wall-mounted versions freed up counter space, while desktop models sat proudly on kitchen tables and bedroom nightstands. But here's the thing about technology. It moves fast, really fast. These push-button marvels barely had 2 decades to shine before cordless phones showed up, letting people wander around while talking. Then, digital mobile phones arrived, making any landline seem ancient. The weird part is how quickly they vanished. One day, every house had at least 3 push-button phones scattered around different rooms. The next day, They were garage sale fodder. Now you'll only spot them in antique shops right next to rotary phones they once replaced. Speaking of furniture that had its moment in the spotlight, patriotic home decor was about to make a massive comeback. Push-button phones barely had time to warm up before America caught colonial fever. The year 1976 brought more than fireworks and flag-waving. The bicentennial celebration sparked a furniture revolution that swept through living rooms faster than you could say, spirit of 76. Suddenly, everyone wanted Windsor chairs with those distinctive spindle backs. Turned wood became the holy grail of home decor. Sturdy oak tables that looked like they survived Valley Forge appeared in dining rooms across suburbia. Well, they didn't actually survive anything except the furniture factory, but who was checking? This wasn't just about buying furniture. Families craved connection to something solid, something that whispered heritage and tradition in a world spinning toward disco and synthetic everything. Colonial revival pieces promised authenticity in an increasingly artificial age. The irony? Most of these colonial pieces were mass-produced in modern factories, using techniques the Founding Fathers never dreamed of. But the chunky, honest look felt real enough. Heavy wood grain, hand-rub finishes, and brass hardware created that coveted early American atmosphere. Then the 80s arrived with their sleek lines and contemporary attitudes. Colonial suddenly felt stuffy and overdone. But speaking of overdone, wait until you hear about the backyard barbecue obsession that was brewing. Remember those fancy colonial furniture pieces that screamed heritage? Well, homeowners in the 1960s and 70s took that outdoor entertaining spirit and built it right into their patios. Built-in barbecue terraces became the ultimate status symbol for suburban families who wanted to show they'd really made it. These weren't your typical portable grills. We're talking about permanent stone or brick structures built directly into elaborate outdoor terraces. The whole setup cost serious money. Think thousands of dollars when that actually meant something. Families would design entire outdoor living spaces around these built-in cooking stations, complete with prep areas, storage, and seating walls. The appeal was obvious. Your backyard became the neighborhood's party central. No dragging equipment around, no wobbly grill legs, just flip a switch and start cooking. These terraces turned weekend cookouts into sophisticated outdoor dining experiences that made everyone feel like they were living in a magazine spread. But here's the thing about permanence. It's expensive to maintain and impossible to move. When portable gas grills hit the market offering convenience and flexibility, those beautiful built-in barbecues started looking pretty silly. Why commit to one spot when you could wheel your grill anywhere? Speaking of things that stayed in one spot, let's talk about those window air conditioning units that rattled houses for decades. Remember those built-in barbecue terraces from upscale homes? Well, inside those same houses, another boxy contraption was working overtime during sweltering summers. Window air conditioning units were the heroes of hot nights, even though they sounded like freight trains parked in your bedroom. These chunky metal boxes hung precariously from window frames, dripping condensation onto sidewalks below. Every room needed its own unit if you wanted relief from the heat. The lucky families had 3 or 4 of them humming throughout the house, creating a symphony of mechanical white noise that somehow became comforting. But here's the thing about progress. It doesn't ask permission before making your setup obsolete. Central air conditioning systems started spreading like wildfire through new construction in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Suddenly, you could cool your entire house with one quiet system hidden away in the basement or attic. The window units fought back for a while, especially in rental properties and older homes. They were cheaper up front, after all. Yet most homeowners eventually surrendered to the convenience of central cooling. Makes sense, right? Speaking of things that divided spaces in creative ways, some homeowners found an even simpler solution than walls or doors. Remember those window AC units rattling away in bedrooms? Well, homeowners found another creative solution for dividing spaces without the noise. Heavy curtains became the go-to room dividers in countless homes during the 1960s and 70s. These weren't your typical window treatments. We're talking thick, floor-to-ceiling fabric panels that could transform one room into 2 distinct spaces instantly. Pull the curtain closed, and suddenly your living room had a private reading nook. Open it back up for parties or family gatherings. The appeal was obvious, much cheaper than building actual walls. Young families stretching their budgets loved this flexibility. Studio apartments used them to create fake bedrooms. Even larger homes employed curtain dividers to section off dining areas or home offices. But here's the weird part. They never really worked as advertised. Sound traveled right through the fabric. Privacy? Forget about it. Anyone could hear conversations, television shows, even whispered phone calls from the other side. Then, open floor plans exploded in popularity during the 1980s. Homeowners started ripping out walls instead of adding barriers. Why hide spaces when you could showcase them? Drywall became cheaper too, making permanent divisions more affordable. Speaking of affordable storage solutions, families also needed dedicated spaces for all their linens and towels. Remember when homes had a place for everything? Well, separate linen and towel closets took that philosophy seriously. These weren't your typical cramped storage spaces shoved wherever builders could fit them. Most mid-century suburban homes featured dedicated hallway closets just for sheets, blankets, and towels. The linen closet usually sat between bedrooms, while towel closets nestled near bathrooms. Smart design, really. You could grab fresh sheets without digging through winter coats or hunting for towels behind cleaning supplies. These closets came with built-in shelving perfectly sized for folded linens. Some even had cedar lining to keep everything smelling fresh. Homeowners took pride in their neatly stacked towel sets and color-coordinated sheet collections. But here's where things got interesting. As home sizes shifted and builders looked to cut costs, those specialized closets disappeared fast. Why build two separate closets when one utility closet could handle everything? Makes sense from a construction standpoint, but families lost that organized convenience. Modern homes typically squeeze linens into bathroom cabinets or bedroom closets alongside clothes. The dedicated linen closet, it became a luxury most builders stopped including. By the 1990s, finding a home with separate linen storage was like discovering a rare gem. Today's homeowners often wish they had those thoughtfully planned storage spaces back.